right, welcome to another edition of the Plus One segment on After the Whistle. We got special guests hailing from North Carolina. Vashti is here. Carolina Blitz is here. How are you?
I'm in the building. It's nice to be with you guys in New England. I'm good. I'm busy, but good.
Yeah, because just coming fresh out of a press conference, those are always fun.
Yeah, right.
So, a lot going on in the world of sports. There's so much. I never thought in my lifetime we'd have so much sports happening in one time. Like it's madness to keep up. But football season, week one's a wrap. The Panthers. Let's talk about the Panthers real quick. What went wrong for them in week one?
I think the Panthers have a very young defense, and that showed this week. Offensively, the Panthers kind of held their own. Teddy Bridgewater had a decent game. I'm sure there's some throws that he would like to get back. But all in all, offensively, the Panthers played well. Christian McCaffrey kind of was a catalyst for that offense when they stalled out in the second half. But defensively, Josh Jacobs for the Raiders kind of got off. And once he got rolling, it was a wrap. And then they kind of shot themselves in the foot at the end. There were a couple of penalties that put the Raiders in position to win. But all in all, given everything, with Cam leaving and the drama that surrounded that, a completely new coaching regime, not as much time to implement offense and kind of philosophy, I think the Panthers did well. Now, maybe no moral victories, but if there were moral victories, they would have one this past week.
And no preseason, so it's
right. All of that.
Got a new quarterback. The receiver's not really used to. How would you? Last year, I said with their offense, at one point there were two. It was either if Christian McCaffrey didn't have a big game, there was nothing was gonna. They're not gonna get the win. So. For the offense, from what you saw, do you think they've actually learned from that? Those wide receivers are ready to step up?
We're still figuring out Joe Brady and what his offense is going to be like. I know heading into the matchup, guys, when we would speak to them on press conferences, they would always say that he's going to utilize everyone's best talent, their best features. And at the beginning of the game, Christian McCaffrey didn't really get the ball much. It seemed like a very concerted effort to spread the ball around and get others involved. They clicked a little bit better when when Christian did get the ball. But the difference between last year and this year, is the quarterback situation. I think Teddy Bridgewater is leaps and bounds ahead of what we had last year. And so that is you can have more confidence in him throwing the ball and not kind of force feed Christian McCaffrey down your throat. On the flip side, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It was kind of broke, but last year Christian really got off. And so, like in basketball, if you got a player that's hot, you got to feed him. And I guess that's what they did.
Feed it to the hot hand. And now they got the Bucks coming in, the highly anticipated Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They go down in week one to the Saints. If the Bucks look back at that game, they'll realize some of the mistakes that they made, because it was a close game for a while in that first half, and then boom, you have the quarterback and the receiver not on the same page, interception. You have a 3rd and long, you get the stop, pass interference. You're driving down, you block punt. So they had like a stretch where they just made mental errors that really much let the game get out of the way. And they'll look at that, they're like, they didn't play, they played bad, but they had a chance, but the mistakes cost them the game.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Is that coming through on your end? I'm sorry. We'll see what happens with Tampa Bay. I didn't get to watch the entire game. I'm going to go back and watch it because it kind of overlapped with what I was doing at the stadium. But it should, going to Tampa Bay, playing, a Bucks team where everybody automatically kind of like, because of the off-season changes and the addition of Tom Brady, kind of basically gifted them the NFC South. I feel like, New Orleans came in and they played kind of like, hey, we're this is our division, and they were playing at home. So the Panthers are going to have their hands full, and with a young defense that they have, I think the Panthers are starting maybe 5 rookies on defense. That's a lot. Tom Brady, if Tom Brady plays with the chip on his shoulder that I expect him to, he's going to have a field day on Sunday.
Yeah, he looked old Sunday. He looked. Both of those quarterbacks, him and Drew Brees, they both looked their age. It was what?
You think so?
Yeah, especially Drew Brees. Drew Brees, he looked his age. Brady, he got a little more to it, but there was certain points. It was just like it was a rough outing. It was more a rough outing for Brees, even though they got the win. He had more of a rough outing because it's a struggle for him to get that ball down the field right now.
But you don't think that Tom Brady will play with a bit more you called out by your coach, you're embarrassed and you lose your opening game, and then
he'll play with a chip on his shoulder, but old age.
Father time.
Yeah, Father time.
Father time is undefeated, huh?
I think for the Bucs, for them to be successful, they have to run the ball more than they pass it. That's what I think. They have to use those 2 running backs, Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones, because they were doing somewhat all right in the running game, but I don't know. And their tackle issues. The tackle that they had was having fits with the Saints defensive end, so they got to shore that up, because if they don't, it's going to be a long season, and we might see Josh Rosen in there.
What?
And they won't be able to keep him healthy if he keeps getting all those hits.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking, but we'll see. And my thing with the Saints, we see this for them every year. They'll have this great regular season, and then they're gonna unfold in the playoffs, and then go blame somebody like they always do. So
you can't really. I mean, you can't trust them postseason. They had that one Super Bowl, and it's kind of they've been struggling in the playoffs ever since, and they just have bad luck on their side. I think that once Drew Brees leaves, it'll kind of breathe a little more life into the franchise. But you're right, there's a lot of old heads in the NFC South. You got Ryan, Brady, and Brees. So
what do you even make of the Falcons? Because I honestly don't know what to make of them. They have talent, but I just don't know what to make of them.
I don't think you know what to make of the Falcons any year. It's on paper, they look like they'll be able to compete with New Orleans and I guess Tom Brady, strictly on paper, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, but they're just inconsistent. You don't know what Falcons team you're going to get week to week. And Russell Wilson came in there and just gave them the straight business. And so I think the NFC South may be a bit more wide open than people are thinking.
I agree with you on that.
If the Panthers can get a win against Tampa Bay, people might start taking notice and see that this division is really, really up in the air.
Yeah. There was a lot of social justice issues, a lot of demonstrations happening. Me personally, I just think it's pandering. Me personally, I think it's pandering with the NFL, because the reason I say that is because the two people that have been at the forefront of this are not in the league. And also, at this point, kneeling, it doesn't have the same effect. It's not as strong as it was 4 years ago. Nobody's going to lose their money. Nobody's going to lose their job. Owners are doing it. Coaches are doing it. It's a demonstration. It's more safe to kneel now. So I think all this stuff is just some of it I think is just pandering.
Yeah, and I think that there are good things and there are bad things about kind of this space that we're in as far as the NFL specifically. The NBA has always been a lot more outspoken. I feel like their players have more power or they embrace their power more when it comes to that. I do think it's good that players aren't shunned like Colin Kaepernick was for just speaking up for basic human rights and speaking out against injustices that we face every day in this country as Black people. So that is good. On the flip side, it doesn't carry as much weight, like you said. It's not, oh, wow, they're, at this point, kneeling putting a fist up, wearing a name on a helmet. Like, I guess you're acknowledging the movement. I don't know how much it really helps the movement. And I feel like these teams or leaders on these teams should be speaking more to maybe community organizers, those who are more active in the movement, to see how they can help as far as whatever requests or demands that they can make. But right now, the kneeling, the patches, the even just, you know, kind of throwing money at organizations without any type of blueprint.
Yeah.
I just, you know, I see the effort, and the NFL's hand was kind of forced. It's not like they did this willingly, but you know, I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more. And as a caveat, athletes aren't the only ones who are responsible in this. Like, you and I as journalists, it's our responsibility to bring light and to keep the conversation going. It's, you know, it's the nurse's job to continue to make sure that when they see injustices, maybe in the medical field, so it's all of our responsibility to make sure that we contribute to this movement in some way.
Yeah, and people just put the emphasis on athletes just because they're rich, and they think rich people can fix everybody's problem, which in most cases rich people causes a lot of problems for so many people. But and the owners too, some of these owners, I just, you know, Jerry Jones, he's acting like he's with it, but he's really.
Wait, listen, we know what and who Jerry Jones is. Like,
yes.
He would like to keep his boys in line, and that's how he would like to see things done. The fact that he cannot penalize players for exercising their basic right to free speech is eating him up inside. I know it is.
Oh, you can tell by when you just watch it. Understand.
Did you see his face? It was like he was disgusted.
Yeah, and another disgusting act was the Kansas City Chiefs fans on opening night. I mean, they don't want people to kneel. They don't want them to lock hands. They don't want them to raise their fists. It's like, so 4 years they told us people were disrespecting the military and disrespecting the flag, and now nobody kneeled, everybody locked hands, and you're booing.
That upset me so much. I think that upset me more than anything else. First of all, Kansas City fans are trash, and they don't deserve nice things, i.e. their team who won the Super Bowl last year and who are favorites to win it again this year. They don't deserve any of that for that display. And it just basically reinforces what we already knew. This was never about, oh, they're disrespecting the flag, oh, they're disrespecting the anthem. They want these players and people and Black people or people of color to stay in their place. They don't want to see us improve our standing or have equal footing with them. They just don't want that. So any display that encourages encourages something different than the status quo, they're going to boo it. And it was like, at that point, if I'm a player, number one, I'm upset because I did everything that you guys supposedly wanted me to do. I did not kneel. I did not disrespect the anthem or whatever else. You know, I think one Kansas City player knelt. And then I get up there right before the game and just lock arms in unity, and you boo that? Like,
unity.
That goes to show that and you cannot please everyone. And in this, like, players should not feel like they have to go out of their way to make everyone happy, because there are certain groups of people who will never be happy, and they just don't want equality.
Yeah, and you know what would have been a strong statement if all the players walked off the field and not played.
That's what I would have wanted to do. Like, if I'm sitting here watching this, and I'm like, I forget, who did they play? Houston. If I'm a Houston player, like, why would I want to play in this stadium amongst these fans who just disrespected me? Mm-hmm. Like, if I'm a Kansas City Chief, like, why would I want to play for these guys, or why would I want to represent this city who does not respect who I am as a person? Yeah. I would have, like, totally wanted to walk off the field in that instance, right there.
And it's hard. It's also hard for these athletes to. this is something they've been doing since they was kids. It's kind of hard for them just to, when it's on game, for them to just stop playing or not play. It's, you kind of can't turn that off and on. So the predicament they're in about not playing, it's a lot to ask for them. Number one, it's already a lot to ask for them to play during these times with everything that's happening right now. So it's like the players have so much that they got on their mind, and just not even dealing with football, and then let this happen to them. And so it's like, we can't win. Y'all never happy. So I mean, what do you want us to do?
Yeah, you just got to keep doing us. Like that would, I mean, time out for trying to appease people and cater to their comfort level. That's just what that showed me.
Yeah, definitely. And also, former Panther made his debut on Sunday. Had a good outing. He looked good out there. He looked really good out there. And then the Dolphins players try to get their Aqib Talib on Debo by trying to snatch his chain after the game's over. And then I don't understand it. They had a whole 60 minutes to stop the man, and then you get mad at the end of the game. Game's over, kneel, and you're trying to snatch the chain, and then you go on social media and try to say nobody wants the weak chain, but there's video of you guys trying to snatch the chain. So,
I mean that, first of all, what a lame display by the Dolphins. Like that is, if you gonna buck. Like, I mean, and to me, bucking at the end of the game, once you've already gotten your behinds beat, and then going on social media afterwards, like that's a punk move to me. Now, talking about Cam Newton is going to be a problem all season. He is going to be a problem, and I don't, kind of like Steve Smith was when he kind of felt shunned when he left the Panthers. Like, these players, if they feel like they've been done wrong, and I feel like Cam kind of was worse because he was a former NFL MVP, led the team to the Super Bowl, played despite being hurt, and kind of like, put his body on the line, and it didn't feel appreciated for it. So now he's in New England playing for the equivalent of a Chick-fil-A sandwich, and he's going to give people the business. Like, Cam is a motivated, higher energy player anyway. I think he played with a chip on his shoulder at the beginning, but once he started getting respect, it was, he was just good, and he started playing. Now he has the talent, the health, and that chip back on his shoulder.
And I just like how the Patriots revamped the entire offense to suit him. You see a lot more RPOs. People were, he's
what else would you do though? Like, I mean, you literally have Cam Newton, and I mean, when you have a guy like that, you cater your offense to that guy. I hated the whole, how he fit into the offense and how he worked with Bill Belichick. Relax. Like, these are men, and they're professionals in their fields. Like, do you think that the offensive coordinator in New England isn't going to salivate over having someone kind of like Cam Newton and being able to try new things? Please.
And people really thought Jared Stidham and Brian Hoyer were gonna win that starting quarterback. Yeah, I legit had arguments with people who thought Jared Stidham, a guy that got benched in a preseason game. I can never forget. If you get benched in a preseason game, you're never going to be an NFL starting quarterback. But the one thing with the Patriots, those wide receivers, those young wide receivers, they need to step up. N'Keal Harry, they had a drive going, and then he fumbles it in the end zone. Jacoby Meyer couldn't get open. The only guy that could get open was Julian Edelman. So these young guys, granted, they got enough time to work and get better, but they need to, if they're gonna be successful, those young receivers, they need to figure it out.
What do you think about, the Browns are shopping Odell? What do you think about that?
I mean, Odell was never a good fit because Baker Mayfield's just not a good quarterback, and if they give Cam Newton Odell Beckham, then we'll see Odell. He's already motivated. He just don't have the proper quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Put him with Cam.
Two motivated guys.
Yeah. It'll be something to watch. There'll be a threat. There'll be a threat to the Ravens and the Chiefs.
If anybody would be able to get that, Bill Belichick, who I'm convinced is Illuminati or something. Bill Belichick would be the one to like get Odell Beckham for like a grilled cheese sandwich, pair him with Cam Newton, and it just be like kind of like when he had Brady and Moss.
Yeah. Yeah, because one thing with Odell, he hasn't forgot how to play wide receiver. He still got the speed. It's his quarterback. I mean, I've been talking about this for about a year now. I think Baker Mayfield's not the guy. If the Bucs were smart, me personally, I think they should have signed Jameis. Because we can say all we want about Jameis, but one thing he does know, he can get the ball to playmakers' hands. Sometimes it's the other team's playmakers, but he can get the ball to his offensive weapons. And we saw that when he had that 5,000-yard season. The Browns did themselves a disservice by not picking up Jameis.
For some reason, quarterbacks kind of like Jameis and Cam, these are guys who were drafted top, have proved themselves. They have the stats to back themselves up. Jameis, I feel like Jameis has all the talent that you really, I feel like he's just waiting to kind of break out. And he's another one who signed for basically pennies on the dollar of his worth, in my opinion, to kind of play backup to a 75-year-old Drew Brees. And so, you have other openings. You have Trubisky. That's, you have Baker Mayfield. It's just, to me, it's just another example of how it's harder. You don't always get the benefit of the doubt when you're a black quarterback.
Oh yeah,
just definitely. Like you don't always get the benefit of the doubt when you're black in any industry that is dominated by white males. So
yeah, definitely. It's that quarterback, black quarterbacks. They definitely we've seen it. I could go through a list of black quarterbacks who never got a second chance, and then we're not even going to get to the head coaches who never got a second chance or
a chance at all.
Yeah, so it's NFL. The NFL has they still have this stigma that they kind of they've never fixed, and I don't think they care to fix it. So it's I don't know. Switching gears to the NBA, we got the two Eastern Conference teams. Now the Lakers are waiting for the Clippers and the Nuggets. And I said this a couple days ago, the Clippers have too many bad habits that's going to stop them from getting to the finals, bad habits that they've had all season and never fixed. And you just can't, if you've never fixed the bad habits, it's just going to keep on following you, and it's showing right now in the second round.
You think Denver is going to win?
I would not be surprised if they won.
I wouldn't put money on
I wouldn't put
money on Denver, but for some reason, and I don't know what's going on, Jamal Murray, I guess he is a guy who has to have his back against the wall in order to perform. Because in those games that they lost, he kind of got lost in the sauce. And now they're clicking. And it seems like, the Clippers don't, they're not making the proper adjustments. And I was having this conversation earlier today. Like, who does that fall on? Is this Doc Rivers? Is this on Doc Rivers that, like you said, the mistakes that they have not been fixed? And I mean, you clearly have enough talent to be able to, clearly, I think they should have beaten Denver.
It should have already been over.
In 6 games. Yeah, it should have been over. At best case scenario, 6 games. No way should you allow them to come back down 3-1 to force a game 7. So it's just, the way that LeBron and the Lakers started looking once they made, and the big thing in that series is they went smaller to adjust to Houston's style of play. And they did it better than Houston did, playing kind of small ball. So now, everybody was automatically felt like, everyone was looking toward the next series to say, how are the Lakers going to match up with the Clippers, and they're so big? And the Clippers are having problems with Denver. I mean, no knock on Denver, but Denver.
Yeah, and they showed the problem with the Clippers. They showed when they were focused. The Nuggets have no business being on the same court with them, none whatsoever. Their problem is they get this lead, then they just start doing dumb stuff. They just start jacking up threes. They start switching for no reason on defense or just not playing defense at all. And these are just, I don't know. Like if you keep being this lackadaisical, it's just gonna keep on going. And you play the Lakers and you're doing this, you'll probably get swept.
It's very likely because I'm gonna tell you what, Bron's gonna have them boys focused, and maybe it's because maybe they need, and I didn't even think about this till just now, but maybe Kawhi is a leader where he leads by example, right? He's not gonna get in the huddle and say, "Listen, you need to do this and this and this. You need to wake up. What are you doing?" It's not Paul George's team. I can't see him getting in the huddle and people really being like, him getting in the huddle and being like, Paul George is the type, he'll talk junk to the other team, but he's not going to hold his teammates accountable in the way that they need to be held accountable. Yeah. And you need somebody on the court as well as your coach to say, all right, guys, like, what are we doing? Somebody to be kind of like that coach on the floor, although that term,
apparently that's Patrick Beverly.
He's like a gnat to me, and I hate gnats.
I don't understand. All right, got a couple more minutes left. All right, so and ever since the song WAP came out, people have been doing some crazy stuff. Daniel House got kicked out for trying to play house in the bubble. We got the guy from Seattle who tried to sneak in his girlfriend disguised as a player. What do you make of these dudes risking it all? Just they're risking it all for some WAP. That's all I can put it.
The WAP is a very powerful thing. That's all I'm going to say. And if we women used and harness the power of the WAP the way that we should, then it would be a whole nother story. But that WAP is a very powerful thing, and guys will risk it all. I mean, and plus I think guys don't feel like they would get caught. There's a certain, and then I think that they like the risk associated with it. So you add all those things on. You just add the WAP and it just period. Add the risk onto it and the kind of like, the kind of thrill of trying to get away with something. I mean, and you better believe there are some guys who have done it and didn't get caught. They just got caught.
Most likely, the big money guys. but my thing with House is like they're watching everything. Everything's tight. You can't find a creative way. Like these guys aren't creative. They can't find creative ways. I mean, granted, the guy from the Seahawks, he had an all right idea.
It was terrible.
It was dumb. It
was terrible. What he should have done was dressed her up kind of maybe like a
hotel staff.
A hotel staff. Like wearing the team gear was a little like, I don't know what you're doing here. Hotel staff would have been a much better way to go.
Yeah, even though.
But he was rookie. Like he's still young. He doesn't know how to finesse. Now Daniel should know better. He has a wife and children. Number one, let's not let that be ignored. Oh,
I'll hear that conversation when he gets home.
The conversation has already been had.
God, man, I don't think he want to go home. He should have stayed in the bubble. Actually,
listen, as a woman, it's not like we are mad at the act. We would be able to maybe stomach it better if you didn't embarrass me in front of the entire nation. Yeah. Like, it's just like a guy, like you can handle things in-house, even if I leave you, but it makes it even worse that like everybody knows that you were sneaking a woman into your room and I'm at home with your children. Like that, like.
And he knows all eyes are on the bubble. That's the thing. All eyes are on the bubble right now. There's nothing else to distract people from the bubble. So anything that happens in the bubble, it's gonna get national attention. So
that's it.
I don't know. These folks out here are crazy. They need they need some Jesus in their life or something. Last time. ACC. Give a little roundup on the ACC. What do you think? What do you think this season? North Carolina, they got a lot of hype.
North Carolina has a lot of hype. Clemson is number one. They have Notre Dame, who is in there just for like this year, which I think was. I don't know how they're going to handle that. If I were the ACC, I would flex my muscles and say, this is not a one and done. Like, this is not going to be a one night stand. Either we together or we not together. And you can, if we not together, then you figure that out on your own. But I'm not playing this middle ground stuff. So, yeah, the ACC they're having a go at it. And they have already had some challenges as far as games having to be canceled and moved around. They made the schedule flexible enough so that, you know, they're able to do that. We'll just see if they're able to play a full season. That's the thing. And then also they're looking very closely at what's happening with other conferences. I don't know if you saw the news, but LSU, their head coach said that most of the team has tested positive for COVID. So, you know, if the ACC has to pause or cancel, the SEC has to pause or cancel, the ACC would likely have to follow because, you know, you aren't really at that point, you aren't legitimately playing for, what are you playing for? ACC championship?
How many players in the ACC have opted out? I know there were a few. I know one from Wake Forest opted out.
There were, I think Syracuse had about 9. Duke had 2 or 3. NC State didn't have many at all. I know UNC had about 4 all cornerbacks, but it hasn't been enough where it would really affect the team. So they're moving forward. We'll see. You know, right now the favorites are Notre Dame and Clemson. So.
And Notre Dame can kick rocks. I don't like them.
I could tell when I mentioned them. Your face said it all.
Yeah, they can correct. All right, Vashti, tell them where they can find your work, social media, website, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so you can follow me on or follow Carolina Blitz on social media at Keep Blitzin, KeepBlitzin. And we're also on Instagram at Carolina Blitz, Facebook Carolina Blitz, and of course CarolinaBlitz.com, where we post all of our coverage of Carolina sports.
All right, Vashti, thanks once again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Hopefully we got a conference next year and down there in Houston, NABJ. So
I wouldn't bet. Wear your mask, okay, guys?
I know. I got like 4 of them. So all right, have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.